opinion poll saying so. So there's no any threat. But at the same time, we should observe. We should observe SOPs given the Ministry of Health. And my professor, my former teacher, seems to be out of touch.
Was the teacher remains the teacher?
Yes, my
teacher. Was teaching you today.
My teacher this time is out of touch. You see, when you are at these levels, you can engage with your teacher. I remember that Professor Sam used to allow us and say, you can disagree with me, and then I will even give you a point if I think your disagreement is valid.
I would also give it to you.
Now, you see, Professor is saying that for him it's like for you to convert people, you must call all the people for your rally. And then those listen to you and say, oh, let me vote. And meaning that voters will attend as many as 11 rallies, since there are 11 presidential candidates. As for parliamentary, I don't know how many they are per constituency. Some are like 10, some are like even 15, some are less. I don't know how many they are in some constituency. The voters, when somebody calls a meeting of voter or a rally, those who go there are FDC supporters. That's a fact. When President Museveni calls for a rally in Guru or in Karamoja, those who go there are NRM supporters. That's a fact, that's a reality. But the myth would be that if people just come and attend, I mean, how many rallies am I going to attend? If there are 11 candidates like today, I go and attend one of Chabwanja, I attend one of Museveni, I attend one of so and so. When you call a rally, that's why even people come in t-shirts, people come singing, come doing what, and that paraphernalia, which goes with the rally, is those who are mainly your supporters. So you always talk to the converted. There's nothing new. You've seen, for instance, in America, when Trump would call their town hall meetings, people would call, come in ready, they call those are Republicans meeting, coming for a rally. He's talking to his fellow Republicans. The same when it is Democrats calling for a rally, if it was like the other election of Clinton calling a rally or Obama calling a rally, those who would be there would be their supporters. No. I mean, so that's not true. So, but even here, if Lukwago calls a rally in Kampala, the people who goes for that rally are Lukwago supporters. Now, take for instance, that's one side of it, that when we go for these rallies or campaign meetings, it is our supporters, depending on who has called that rally, who go for that rally. That's why even EC tries to say that when FDC is in Kampala for a rally, NRM don't have a similar, be in the same place, same day, because you are likely when these people meet each other, they are likely even to go into a confrontation. That's the reality, what happens on the ground.
Okay.
In fact, if you went at FDC rally, putting on a red t-shirt and say, for me, I'm for Kyagulanyi, you will see what will happen to you. If you went to any other of the opposite, if you went to NRM rally and say, yeah, I'm FDC, you people, what you are saying is, I don't support you. They will want to eat you up. So that's what happens on the ground. It's like when you're going to a mosque, mostly me, I don't go to a mosque. Those who are going to church, they are Christians or whatever. You don't find the Semuju, Ibrahim going to a church, say, let me see what they are saying, maybe I might convert to Christianity. No, he doesn't do that. So he goes to where his faith tells him.
Crusade.
Fine. But even then, so,
Professor and Moses, on that point, you both said the same thing.
Yeah.
That so, you can't recruit from your own people.
No.
So Moses Biaruhanga has agreed with you.
Campaigns, first of all, campaigns is about three things. One is consolidating your support. So when you go for a rally and you call your own people to come for a rally, you're consolidating your support in terms of message, in terms of what you're going to do next. But also you target the other people. See, the most crucial campaign is like now when one is on radio, talking to whoever is listening and saying, oh, these people have a good point.
Okay.
When you go on like a village-to-village campaign, for us, our target, we have 72,000 villages. We have 48 campaigners per village. Those 48 campaigners per village are going to door to door. These are the ones who come and say, Professor Mwebesa, will you give us a vote? No, I don't want even to hear about you. Okay. Those are the ones doing the door-to-door campaign. And those have not been stopped. They are continuing. Door-to-door campaigns are continuing. Electronic campaign are continuing. And the Ugandans
Chiboko is
had
continuing.
better learn that even now, this is changing the future, that people are going to continue campaigning electronically. President Museveni, for instance, in the last election, had 180,000 votes from Wakiso district, where Semuju comes from. He had 150,000 voters in Kampala who voted for him in Kampala. You wouldn't expect 150,000 voters in Kampala who voted for Museveni all to have come to a rally or rallies Museveni had in Kampala. You wouldn't expect 180,000 voters in Wakiso to have come to a rallies President Museveni held in Wakiso, but they still voted for him. So don't expect that after all they haven't attended rallies, they will not vote. They don't know whom to vote for. People today, if you hear the vote today, you will get as many voters voting for their candidates because they know they've heard about them, they know about them.
Thank you, Moses. Let me put these figures to Ofonopondo. Joan, a teacher, says, if Mr. Mirahanga is so sure of winning, why do you attack the opposition and supporters? Why do you keep directing them to other routes? Why use the army? Ofonopondo, it is known, like Moses is saying here, that NRM fields more candidates than any other opposition party, than all the opposition parties put together. So already that's an indicator that NRM will win. But then why stop? Why hinder? Why? It's just not clear. These weak people, why don't you allow them to campaign?
I know you want to divert me, but let me go back to your original question, which was the EC announcement banning or limiting campaigns. I don't think it was banned. They limited campaigns.
Banned in 13 districts.
I'm saying
13
limited
areas.
Because the
Suspension, that is the statement.
Now you have started the disruptive.
No, because the word is suspension.
No, allow me, and that's why suspension is a limitation, not a ban. Listen, you made your point. Please take down notes. You can respond to me.
No, you will not shut me up, Ofono.
I know you want
it is suspension.
Okay, accepted.
Yes.
So let me switch off the microphone.
If indeed Perry Aretwa had been meticulously monitoring the electoral process, she would have known that the Electoral Commission on that Saturday at Banda, when they were supervising the packaging of polling materials for onward transmission to the districts, the Electoral Commission actually did make a formal media briefing at that function, at which they announced the suspension, the limitation of campaigns, public campaigns in these districts. They then immediately followed with a written media release, at which they said the one that on the Thursday they had met the Minister of Health. Wednesday, and the Minister of Health, is the one who gave them the basis on which they moved to make suspension, to make limitations. So you would have known that they actually said they met the Electoral Commission, the Minister of Health, and so there was consultation. Secondly, I mean, I'm quoting their press release. Secondly, in that press release, they also said the candidates can continue with the following methods of campaign. Flyers, posters,
they are removed by
announcements, bizindalo, road drives by vehicles, social and digital media, radios, TV, and door-to-door. In their press release, they detailed the other form of campaigns that were needed. And so, I think, go back, maybe register with them if you're not, so that you receive all their written communication. Professor Mwambusia says that you only talk, your campaigns means talking to people who don't support you so that you convert them. That's true. But but the campaigns are at different levels. Depending on circumstances, I will go to consolidate my people. I then do planning to reach hostile groups or ambivalent people. I don't expect hostile people to come to my meeting. I don't expect ambivalent people perhaps to come to my meeting. And therefore, those should be approached through meticulous planning. If you're a good campaigner, that's what you do. Even quoting from the religious institutions you made, I have not known Muslims who go to churches on Sundays, except perhaps if they are going for funeral services or for weddings. So all the people who go to mosques are usually Muslims. All the people who go to Ravaga, Catholic churches, are usually, majority of them are confessed Catholics. I don't expect.
They are not
So,
a crusade.
yes,
The crusade does not take
well,
place inside.
even a crusade, you will not find a Muslim.
No, you
in
can
a
go
crusade.
there and be
Well,
converted.
unfortunately, the campaign is not a crusade. So, as a
Actually,
professor,
it's not a crusade.
as a
It's
professor,
very
you
outside.
made even if you make outside, you can have a planning meeting outside. So you don't make any point there. Then the issue of the Electoral Commission can only issue guidelines in relation to election matters. And therefore, if you want to fault somebody, why the Electoral Commission has suspended certain modes of campaign, and yet markets are operational, public transport of buses are continuing, churches are continuing, you should hold another arm of government responsible. Don't hold the Electoral Commission. The Electoral Commission can only give guidelines insofar as election matters are concerned. Now,
connivance.
Professor Mambus again says that they in Makerere are teaching more than 300. Clearly, if that's what you are doing, and you're speaking for Makerere University, or at least for your department, then you are violating, you are breaching.
I'm not speaking
on behalf of any institution. You are breaching the SOPs that the Minister of Health, Minister of Education.
I'm not the spokesperson of
Minister of
Makerere
Education
as you are a spokesman of NRM.
issued to education institutions.
For
Because
now,
as far as we know,
to
as far as we know, education institutions were given SOPs. They were given SOPs. So if in your class you're teaching more than 300 at a go, clearly you're breaching this. But let me say, people are quoting and saying they know. Since that suspension, I have been to 3 national task force meetings of the NRM. I can report without fear of contradiction that actually the Electoral Commission did not consult the NRM.
Would you tell us?
At least they did not consult the Secretary General of the NRM, they did not consult the Chairman of the NRM National Task Force, Haji Chibungu. We also learned from the media. And we are aggrieved, but we are saying we are saying. You remember when that suspension came? President Museveni, candidate Museveni was due to be in Mukono the following day on Monday.
And he went.
He did not. He did not go there as a candidate. He went there as a president to commission outstanding projects that had been completed. And so we are as much affected as everybody else, or at least our candidates are as much affected as every other candidate. But being law-abiding, but also knowing that COVID is real, and most importantly, we know that the NRM has the critical infrastructure we need to deliver our election message, which is that, first of all, we have a message. 2, we have party structures. 3, we have election campaign structures. And 4, we have a willing audience. 5, we have platforms. Even if we don't have actual traditional public meetings, we can still use the medium, the platforms available to effectively reach the population. So while we have concerns, we think that it is not fatal for our campaign message to reach the population. And so we are willing to abide by the Electoral Commission guidelines while consultations are going on. Hopefully the Electoral Commission, if it is not too late, may modify their message. But also I agree, where I agree with Perry, is that actually when the ban came, I called the Electoral Commission and I said, for example, for presidential candidates, you could have said, I think I even spoke to Moses, yes, I said, why couldn't you pay airtime, at least for presidential candidates, on radio stations around the country, so that in lieu,
Even where you have paid, they stop you.
I'm talking about the Electoral Commission buying airtime for at least the 11 presidential candidates, so that
In lieu of that hefty payment they made.
Yes, in lieu of the fact that they are not going to drive around these 11 districts or perhaps other towns, they are able to go to a radio station in Tororo, they are able to go to a radio station in Gulu, which you have paid, you as the Electoral Commission has paid, and then they reach. And they said they are going to consider. I don't know whether the issue is money or whatever. They have not, at least I'm not aware that they have paid airtime for presidential candidates. So I thought, yes, in that respect, I thought. But also in the other respect, I think the Electoral Commission should have written formally, not just waiting for candidates to read the press release, so that they formally write to presidential candidates that day to say we have suspended, so that people don't read in the papers and they want to use this as an excuse. After all, we all know that even before this suspension, there are candidates who had fizzled out, but you don't want to give them a straw to hang on, that because of the suspension. Let me finally deal with the issue of the NRM. No, I just want to deal with this one.
No.
This is not media
Perry, both Perry.
Listen, let's stop for a breakfast.
Both Perry.
Let's stop for a
This is not
breakfast.
media center. Even media center,